Chapter 31. Dragon. Bad people carry dragon from cage to cart, then to vehicle with bad driver, then to cargo hold of bad-smelling spaceship. Still frozen in place but not zapped again. Hope to move soon. Shellman and others put in next part of cargo hold, separated by blank wall buzzing faintly. Hard to tell while frozen, but think wall made of hard air like some back home. Can be made less solid by pressing right buttons, or breaking right electronics. Can't wait to try. Bad people load things into every other compartment, move fast and sloppy. Dragon hear more than one thing break, but no one stop to fix or clean up mess. Just kick broken bits away and throw more onto pile. Bad people leaving station in hurry. Good people probably leaving too. Dragon wonder if should worry about safety. Maybe bad people damage station like Bugman said, but bad people in charge of danger and wouldn't make station explode with own ship still on it. Probably. Depend on level of badness. Dragon hear last box thrown into hold. Footsteps run out of room. Bug people footsteps talking in click language like cicadas. Hard to tell if bugs worry about explosion. Hear faint sound of engines but no jerk of gravity. Maybe ship move like other one, gently. Could be moving at speed of cheetah fart and not know it. Spine relax slightly. Freeze wearing off. Big parts go first. Dragon put all muscles into fighting to move. Feel it work. Can turn head now. See nothing in very small cargo space, just light from ceiling. Gray metal panels on floor and buzzing knot walls on three sides. Metal wall behind. Front knot wall made differently. Can see through. See only boxes and garbage. No sign of where find breakable electronics, but dragon not mind. Going to smash everything until find right spot. Pity no chairs here. Chairs good for throwing against walls, able to stand, able to walk, almost able to make fist. When will start to smash. In meantime, limp over to front knot wall and look out at walkway between other chambers. No bug people. Chambers full of crap, some broken. Nothing look interesting. No obvious weapons or food or talk boxes. We'll ignore for now. Start with knot walls, fist ready. Dragon make two, beat against chest in old style, and bellow intent to destroy. Echo is annoying. Slam fists into knot wall, make more annoying sounds. Bang, 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 no electronics there, not expected, but worth trying. Move to other walls, bang, 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 none there, not even down at bottom. Try metal floor, bam, 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 much better. Metal plates dent easily. Dragon pretend is heads of bad bugmen and beat floor with no mercy. When plates warp out of place, pry up and throw against knot wall. Make good zapping noises. If no breakable electronics in floor, we'll try to damage front knot wall with too much metal. Floor under panels uneven, made of empty spaces and more metal. Thicker. Try cutting with edge of panel but not worth effort. Throw panel and go back to prying up more. Must be something important under one. Maybe by back wall. Hear footsteps coming. Wonder what took so long. Grab stack of bent floor plates, stand on last bit of level floor and wait. When bug people show faces and guns around corner, dragon roar at them and fling plate like discus. Good at discus. Able to cut down small trees with sharp ones. Plate makes sound like lightning bolt when hit knot wall, and bugs scatter like mice, or like normal bugs. When light is turned on and scary big creature is revealed with swatting tool, dragon roar again and fling other swatting tools after the first. Make unholy racket of electronic noise. Maybe enough to damage knot wall? We'll try. Bugs too scared to turn it off long enough to use freeze guns. Dragon bare teeth in angry smile. Throw plates like whirlwind. Chapter 32. Zephyr. I huddled in the far corner, rolled into my tightest protective ball while the earth monster in the next cell did his best to tear the ship down around us. The good bug alien and the kind interpreter panicked above me, accomplishing nothing. Then something flashed with a brightness that I could see through closed eyelids, and everyone exclaimed. I huddled tighter, convinced that we were about to be blasted into space. But no. When the sounds of destruction stopped, a rush of clattering footsteps and the distinctive zap of a paralysis gun filled the silence. The thump I heard must have been dragon falling over, frozen again. Before I could decide how I felt about that, other footsteps approached at a measured pace. Smuggler bugs were chattering. Vitter was cussing them out in their own language and being ignored, while Roka was silent nearby. I saw no reason to unroll. It was only when a voice spoke in my language, that I poked my head into the open. This bug alien was clearly the boss. Shiny bits of metal and gemstones traced intricate patterns over much of her yellow-white exoskeleton, and subtle whorls of blue marked her limbs, leaving only that big-eyed face clear of alterations. She stood with confidence, taller than the others because of natural size and because they angled their bodies to bring their eye levels lower. She wore a belt harness thing with several important-looking gadgets on it. She didn't carry a gun. She had underlings for that. And she didn't waste time on pleasantries. "You on the floor," she said slowly. "Did you learn enough from the Earthling to keep this creature calm?" I said, thoughts spinning. If I said no, the criminals might decide I was worthless and shoot me. If I said yes, I would be lying through my beak tip. They would put me in the cell with Dragon, then he'd wake mad again, and I'd just hide in a riskier corner while he wrecked the ship. And they'd be mad at me. Let them. Maybe I'd help Dragon break out. I owed these villains nothing. "Yes," I said, getting to my feet. "Yes, I did." I had a passing thought that Roka the interpreter understood the conversation, and she was likely wondering what I had planned. I put it from my mind. "Good," the sparkly boss said. "Next question. What became of the survivors of the ship that crashed on your planet?" They were, I thought about it. The last I had seen them, they were in their invisible shuttle, fighting it out with Rumble's crew. I didn't know whether they had won the fight or not. But if they had, surely they would have contacted their allies by now. Rumble might have killed them, or, more likely, held them captive for a large government bounty. Rumble was so smart, and he still had the stealth breaker. These aliens didn't know about it. I had an idea. "They're probably locked away in Rumble's basement," I declared, "and he'll do the same to you too if you're not careful." "Who is Rumble?" the boss asked. "And why should I fear him?" I waxed poetic about the man's most impressive traits, being sure to steer the conversation away from anything useful. Rumble possessed determination and loyal friends, not to mention an inspiring physique, and a voice that could convince a person to walk off a cliff. These things I described at length, but not his tools, and I didn't stop talking. Not until the boss clicked at her underlings, likely telling them to change the ship's direction toward the city area I'd mentioned. 2 of them scampered off while I continued, expressing confidence that Rumble the Valiant would persevere against the likes of these off-world ruffians. The boss directed the remaining ruffians to move me from one cell to the next. This involved a lot of threatening gun-waving while they lowered our force field long enough to grab me. Viter and Roka obediently kept their distance. I just kept talking. By the time they shoved me in with Dragon, I was off on a tangent about the evils of smuggling, and that was a topic I could expound on at length. The boss walked away. She clearly didn't care to hear it. Neither did the guard left to watch us, but that one moved out of my line of sight, pretending to be as invisible as the ship. As the ship is to most people, I thought smugly. I brought my rant to a stop. The room was silent. The aliens in the next cell exchanged words quietly. Dragon didn't move. He looked uncomfortable, frozen on the uneven floor, so I tapped over, toe claws clicking on the warped metal to see if I could help. I couldn't, given his size, but I stroked the fur on his head and murmured soothing promises of violence toward our enemies. Eventually, I spotted the first sign of thaw, a slow curl toward a sit-up. I caroled the news to Roka, then had a moment of worry that the guard at the stairs could hear, but thought better of it. Worst case, he would come over and refreeze Dragon before he thawed fully, but that seemed unlikely since I was supposedly keeping him calm. Hopefully, Dragon would act calm enough not to raise suspicions until he was ready to move. Then I would happily help him throw parts of the floor. He'd certainly ripped out enough to give us plenty of ammo. He did stay calm. The gorilla regained the ability to stand without voicing more than an irritated grunt. I called to Roka, explaining through her translations the situation that we were now in. The gorilla nodded much like Robin usually did, then began stretching. I was relieved to find him more patient than I'd expected. Dragon flexed his fingers, looked at me with an unreadable expression, then picked up a warped floor tile. He gestured toward the force field with it, making a noise that was probably a question. "Roka, can you ask him to wait a few minutes?" I called. "Rumble should—" Distant thumps interrupted me, making a curious patter that I suddenly recognized as projectiles hitting the ship. Rumble's weapons. Were they up to piercing this ship's defenses? The location of the strikes seemed to be changing, as if testing for weak spots. An alien voice called from upstairs. The guard immediately left us, clattering away while the impacts grew louder. I started to worry that the ship might simply explode. It could easily have a combustible fuel tank. A new vibration from under the floor was truly alarming. Not as alarming as the sound of Dragon roaring from close up. I flinched when he threw the tile with terrifying force, causing sparks to fly in a way they certainly weren't supposed to. Roka shouted that she and Vitter would try to help overload the circuits on their side. Footsteps and more flickering said they were throwing themselves bodily at the wall. I hoped it didn't hurt. Dragon roared again and flung broken floor pieces as quickly as he could pick them up. True to my word, I grabbed one myself, dismayed to find it incredibly heavy. When I threw it, the thing didn't reach the force field. I hoped that Dragon was too busy to notice. I was gauging the angles of Dragon's shots, trying to find a safe place for me to stand closer to the wall, when a two-handed assault from him in sync with another charge next door caused the force field to explode in sparks and electricity. When I unrolled to look, it was gone. Dragon was already running for the stairs. Roka appeared and yelled something in Robin's language, which caused him to reluctantly come to a halt. I scrambled to join them. By the time I reached the front of the cell, Roka was directing Dragon to rip a large panel off the wall, while Vitter gave suggestions. I was impressed anew with how fast the narrow alien spoke. Then, when Dragon had done his part and thundered on his way, I was impressed with something else. Roka's shape let her fit into a space that I never would have considered habitable. She crawled right into the gap in the metal wall. Vitter gestured, speaking quickly with silver elbow joints flashing in the light, giving instructions about something. I wanted to ask what the plan was, but I hesitated to interrupt. It sounded important. Roka said something while only half her leg showed. Then over the sounds of distant battle and a less distant rampage, I heard a small snap. The lights went out. Panicking seemed the thing to do. I hyperventilated and scrambled toward where I remembered the nearest corner to be. By the time I got there, dim red lights were glowing to life from several places in the walls, just barely enough to see the room. Roka crawled back out of the spaceship's innards, while Vitter appeared to be congratulating her on a job well done. She caught a glimpse of my wide-eyed huddle and hurried to explain. Vitter, she said, knew the inner workings of this type of ship well. It was his people's tech, after all. And his fury at the behavior of these villains matched mine. The Bugman ripped open a box to find something that made him chatter in angry delight. Roka told me they were more of the flashbangs that had caused the bright light earlier. Vitter shouted something cheerful, threw a bag over one shoulder, then charged toward the stairs with his many legs clicking. Roka urged me to follow. I did my absolute best to match his speed. We climbed the wide gray staircase, each in our own fashion, and found a trail of destruction left by our large friend. Broken things and unconscious bug people littered the metal floor. There were no weapons to scavenge yet, but I kept my eyes open while we ran. Violence raged around the next corner. Vitter stopped to peer around it carefully, and I huddled behind him while Roka looked. They whispered briefly. Roka crouched and told me to cover my eyes. Then she shouted something for Dragon to hear. I squeezed my eyes shut as Vitter threw something. Even with my hands over my face, that flashbang shone with a piercing glow. The enemies exclaimed in surprise, then in pain when Dragon took advantage of the moment. Soon the room was quiet, and Dragon's heavy footsteps moved on to the next one. Vitter scurried around the corner. Roka leapt after him, fast on that single leg, and I rushed to join them. A pair of unconscious bug aliens sprawled on the floor with paralysis guns there for the taking. Vitter already had one, and Roka struggled with the other. It was designed for 2 hands, one to steady it and one to fire. "Can I help?" I asked, standing by her side and gesturing. We worked it out quickly. She would hold the thing, and I would contribute my small fingers to fire it. All that remained was getting into a position with enemies to shoot. Vitter nodded briskly and moved forward. Roka clutched the gun and hopped after him, keeping an eye on my pace. I tried not to disappoint. A translated word from Vitter told us that the chamber ahead was the control room. By the sounds of things, the rest of the baddies were holed up in there while Dragon threatened them from the narrow hallway. The ship still vibrated from gunfire against the hull, and I spared a moment to wonder how Rumble was doing. "Flashbang," Roka told me. I covered my face as she repeated it for Dragon. When the light cleared, I scrambled to take my position with the gun. Vitter fired around the corner. We edged forward awkwardly just in time to see Dragon throw the limp bug alien he'd been using as a shield. This bowled over the enemies, giving the three of us all the opening we needed to freeze the lot of them. A single panicked voice from inside the control room was a sign we'd done well. Vitter clambered over the frozen forms of our enemies, disappearing into the room before Dragon could. Zaps filled the air. Dragon roared in what sounded like triumph. I let go of the gun and started climbing over the mess to join them. Roka beat me there. By the time I entered the control room, Vitter was poking madly at the controls while Roka and Dragon cleared the frozen enemies out of the way. I sidestepped the stiff form of the gem-bedecked boss who'd been so condescending earlier. I gave serious thought to yelling at her or stealing a gem. I settled for a rude gesture and a solid kick. We had important things to do. Vitter flicked something that made the view screen useful. He was landing the ship in the middle of a decrepit city street. Rumble's people were fanned out around it, still firing. Vitter said something and pointed to what could have been a microphone. Roka spoke into it. "Please stop shooting," she said. "We have taken over the ship." I leapt forward to add my voice. "Rumble, it's me, Zephyr. It's safe now." The gunfire stopped as we landed, silent as ever. Then Vitter opened every door he could find. I was still talking into the microphone when a familiar deep voice laughed from the hallway. "Well done, small fry. Care to split the bounty with us?"